Since I was a kid, I've had only one idea in mind: sailing. This was stronger than everything else, and I sailed. I sailed in many seas, but never with my personal boat. Finally, in 2016, at the green age of 54, I could afford to buy a 33 feet that was just back from the Round the World tour. Baimaiself is her name. She was moored in Grado on the very northern part of Adriatic Sea.
Ciao ragazzi, laguna di Grado, 24 ottobre 2016. Siamo qui.
Proviamo il Baimaiself in laguna.
Baimaiself.
Possiamo dare altri 500 giri in su di qua.
The first cruise happened at the end of the year from Grado to Caorle and then to Venice. For that occasion I had a very special crew. My friend Tiziano, with the daughter Viola, the wife of Tiziano, Alessandra, who was pregnant, and the dog Gigi, and a friend of Viola with her father. Full crew for the very special occasion. During winter I went back and forth Rome to Venice, where winter can be remarkably cold. A pleasant trip anyway. I saw friends, I made refittings, I started becoming confident by myself. I saw the Biennale Arte, hosted friends and dogs, and waited for spring to come. It has been a long, cold winter, but it is hard to get bored in Venice, so thanks to the restaurants, thanks to the museums, thanks to Baimaiself, thanks to my parents who came to visit, thanks to Tiziano's friend. Thanks to the most unique seaside town. With spring also Alice arrived. Welcome Alice, you arrived with spring as really important girls do.
31 maggio 2017. Stiamo uscendo dal Marina Vento di Venezia.
The solo was probably due to the karma of my boat, Baimaiself, nomen omen. Northern Adriatic Sea on Italian side is not interesting for seamen, but usually is quite relaxed. Harbors are cheap and well equipped. There are nice restaurants and sometimes nice cities to visit. First leg had been Venice to Marina di Ravenna. A port channel big but quite desert at the time of my passage in May. Be aware that there is poor depth at the entrance. After Marina di Ravenna, I headed to Fano. Fano is definitely a nice place. Nice Centerville, nice Roman archaeology to visit, super food and young nightlife for those who are interested. I was very lucky because my dear friend and sailor Enrico lives here. Remember to be watchful to the depth also here when entering and going out from the channel.
Grazie all'ospitalità fantastica di Enrico, le cozze stupende e 1,5 kg di spigola nel suo barbecue, bellissimo.
Adriatic is fulfilled with all gas extraction platforms. It is impossible to understand if they are still active or not, but they really look ugly. Some nice encounters can be done here. This is Amerigo Vespucci, the famous sailing vessel of Italian Navy. At last, I arrived in Ancona, hometown of my grand-grandmother and of a couple of uncles. The old harbor is very well protected, and I am moored at an historical building right on the water, home of sailing club SEF Stamura. I remained a few months in Ancona, going back and forth with Rome, where I live. I love this town. There are nice shops, great restaurants, great local wines and local recipes. Prices are really honest and people are nice. Here you are in Marche, one of the very best areas in Italy. Right south of Ancona, there is Monte Conero, a big cliff that falls to the sea with white falesia covered with wood. The coast is wonderful. The harbor is super safe. You can enter literally with every weather, and once inside you are protected from everything. From here, live ferries to Croatia and Greece. During the summer, there is an intense nightlife on the harbor. This can be agreeable or not, depending on you. I solved the problem with earplugs. Also made friends with the diving center right on the pier of the nautical club SEF Stamura, so I had access to social dinner and to a couple of dive expeditions near here.
Alba, 20 luglio 2017, ore 6 e 45.
First stop, San Benedetto del Tronto, a good marina.
Ciao Conero! Ciao Conero! Ci vedremo. Grazie.
During the night I was reached by Monica and Giorgio, good friends, so I also had a crew now, a real crew. With Monica and Giorgio we decided to leave in the night directly in order to arrive at Isole Tremiti the day after. Isole Tremiti are a small archipelago at 90 miles from there. Our target was to arrive at the boy camp located in the pass between San Domino and San Nicola, a very good and tranquil spot.
Dopo l'alba e il tramonto.
We arrived a little late, but in time for dinner. The islands are astonishing. Tremiti archipelago is composed by 3 main islands. The biggest one is San Domino, very green, with villas of wealthy people from Puglia. San Nicola, wonderful, with a big monastery that is there since over 800 years. The monastery is now empty and practically fully visitable. On the island lives a very small community of locals, I guess less than 100
Life is
inhabitants
sweet
at Tremiti Islands. Monica and Giorgio left from the continent at Termoli, closest harbor on land. Then I waited alone a few days for my new crew, Paola, while some days of rough sea and rain were passing. With Paola, we stopped again in San Nicola. I needed to go back there, too special. And the day after, we left heading directly on the Croatian coast, Lastovo, an island 70 miles from there. Crossing was nice and safe. In Croatia, you need to communicate to port authority your arrival as soon as you get there. They're very strict. In Lastovo, there is a very comfortable bay to spend the first night close to the dock of port authority. The farthest stop was Curzola, nice Venetian town, full of bars and international tourists. After one day we went to Dubrovnik, where my good friend Roberto reached us. It's the only sea town in the Adriatic Sea that was never under Venetian dominion. Completely gentrified with rude bartenders and one of the most expensive marinas you could expect into the Mediterranean. 100 euros per night for a 33-feet boat, like in Saint-Tropez or Portocervo. After a couple of days, we escaped destination Montenegro. So we had to make a stop by at Kavtat to make the paper to exit the country and took direction south to the Bay of Kotor, former Bocche di Cattaro, another Venetian fortified town at the bottom of the deep bay. Also in Montenegro, we needed to make entrance at Port Authority, so we had to spend the night at the entrance of the Gulf at the pier of Ciutadella. Not bad anyway. Gulf is amazing. 14 miles surrounded by high cliffs and here and there small villages and Orthodox churches on tiny islands. Cruise ships, deep and crystal clear water on an alpine lake, but with the sea. Kotor is a curious mix of Soviet domination and ancient Venetian blend. People are very nice and prices are honest. It's an amazing village where time stopped 500 years ago. Apart the tourists, of course. After a couple of days, we woke up early in the morning to start our trip of 80 miles to arrive to another country, Albania, heading Durrës. Durrës is a crazy place, very interesting. As in the main harbor there was no indication of pleasant pier, we stopped into the new fishing marina, just at the left of the entrance of the main harbor. At that time, the harbor wasn't finished. Durrës is a Muslim town with mosques, the muezzin praying, and a skyline of Russian rationalist buildings and malls. Albanians are super nice and almost everyone speaks Italian. That is because they can see Italian television since ever, and because a lot of people worked with Italian smugglers at the time of communism. Last stop in Albania was Porto Palermo, right in front of Corfu. Super nice bay with a peninsula in the middle with a castle on it, the castle of Ali Khan. Easy entrance, you have to avoid the military base at the northern end of the bay. In the middle of the bay, just behind the peninsula, there is a pier, a small pier that is supposed to serve the military, but I have to tell that we moored there and nobody bothered us. Maybe we were just lucky. Right in front of Porto Palermo, there is Marina Guvia, one of the best marinas in Corfu. The marina is huge, very comfortable and equipped with all facilities and service you can need. We had some small repairs to do with the engine and the main, and we found right in the marina the Volvo assistance and a very nice cell repairs. Roberto kept his flight back to Rome from here. The international airport is about 20 minutes ride of taxi. Favorite tavernaki in Guvia is Takis, very close to the entrance of the harbor, home cooking and nice prices. It was August 1st, and here it looked like D-Day in Normandy. Hundreds of boats of all shapes and measures were arriving from all directions, especially from Italy, of course. Corfu town is amazing. The historical center is wide and perfectly maintained. There is a wonderful castle fortress on the hill and one on the sea. The streets are full of shops, bars, restaurants. In high season is frankly too crowded. Nice spots to enjoy could be Micro Cafe, to get a drink just before dinner. It's cozy and in the very center. Ilia Homemade to have dinner is more like a dining, but they serve very juicy Greek food. Or La Veranda, that is a very good restaurant with nice food and good service. Aldebaran is a nice bar to spend the night. As soon as we were fit, we left Corfu. We spent the night in Antipaxos, surrounded by enormous motorboats, and the following morning we headed straight south to Lefkada. Lefkada is namely an island, but practically is an enormous peninsula separated by mainland from a channel guarded by an ancient castle. Once in the channel, you have to wait for the moving bridge to open. They have opening hours, so better to check before, because the channel with the waiting boats in August can be tricky. After the channel, you have one of the best spots ever for sailing and cruising. Lefkas town is a small town, very pleasant, that is often destroyed by earthquakes. So, like in California, the Lefkadians have their own methods to defend their homes from quakes. The town is super typical Greek, with the advantage that there are less tourists than in Corfu. You can find very nice restaurants, boutiques and a very beautiful beach to do kitesurf. There are two marinas. One is public and free, but mainly filled with charter boats. Not easy to find a place in August. The other is a private one, really close to the town, just in front, with full facilities and affordable price. We stopped there. In Lefkas arrived the new crew member, Manuela, and there we met Tiziano, skipper in the beautiful Freya, with his aunt Gianna, working as hostess with him. Lefkada, a nice place to have dinner is Eutikia, very typical and very nice. Renowned for his cocktails is Karma Bar on the lagoon side. If you have time and you want to rent a car, you can visit Karia, a very beautiful village up on the mountain. After Lefkas, we anchored in Vliho, the most tranquil bay I've ever seen apart from earthquakes. 5-meter depths all around mud bottom. You could leave the boat anchored here for a full winter. If you're anchored in Vliho, you can simply moor at the pier of the restaurant that cooks excellent seafood, or get a taxi and arrive at Taxiarchis Tavern that is super recommended for me. From here we had some hanging in the islands in the Lefkas Sound like Scorpio or Meganisi, amazing area. Right after the south cape of Lefkada, there is the village of Sivota, in a very protected and beautiful bay. If you go there, don't miss Taverna Spiridula. After a nice crossing with 30 knots of wind from northwest, we stopped in Fiscardo, northern part of Cefalonia, to allow Paola to get her plane back to Italy. The village is cute, the harbor is really tiny, and in that conditions you have to anchor at the entrance of the bay with a line ashore. It is quite complicated with the strong wind coming from the side. Right off the port of Fiscardo there is a very good fish restaurant, not a taverna, Tassia. The morning after, we could go south, stayed in the channel between Cefalonia and Ithaca. So we reached Castos, a wonderful small island in front of the mainland coast of Epiro, one of the most beautiful islands I saw in Mediterranean. A lot of space to anchor, crystal clear water, and a tiny village ashore. In Castos was waiting for us Tiziano on Freya. In fact, it was his suggestion to come here. And we spent a couple of days hanging heavenly. In the village, just on the beach, you can find Traverso, a very good cocktail bar. You can have dinner in Taverna Belos, in front of it. This is very good and right by the sea. And in case you want to continue your night, there is the nice LE bar. In front of Castos, there is Calamos. Calamos deserves a tour. Very different from Castos. This island is very high and super green with woods, and here also you can find good spots for swimming and snorkeling. In front of everything there is the Greek coast of Epiro. If you plan to stay overnight in the harbor, note that the harbor master, Georgios, is also the owner of the best taverna of the village. Don't miss it. And in case you like to spend the following day ashore, you can walk to Agrapidia beach, that is warmly recommended. On the way back, we visited Atokos, one other spot super amazing for spending a day of swimming and relaxing.
Praticamente ieri col traghetto ho avuto una crisi isterica. Ci è mancato tanto così.
I need to make a special mention for Frikes in Ithaca. Never more in my life I am going to come back in this nightmare of an harbor. When the ferry arrives, practically 30 knots until after the entrance of the harbor, a hail of waves smashes all the boats that are inside. After Ithaca, we made an amazing tour of Cefalonia. The spots we loved to swim were right south of Essos. At last, we spent the night in Antheras, a calm and beautiful bay with 2 restaurants ashore and a church.
Lasciando la punta nord-ovest di Cefalonia e dirigendoci verso Argostoli, un gran bel posto, è un'isola stupenda da tornarci.
The Greek tour for this year stops in Argostoli, the main town of Cefalonia, close to the airport and with all kind of facilities you can imagine. It's a natural reserve because there are tribe of marine turtles. So you have to be very watchful about pollution. The harbor is public. You have to put your anchor and then pay a very small fee. The people of the municipality will pass in the afternoon. You can find all kinds of provisioning here, but to put fuel you need to book it and to move at the entrance dock where a small truck will come to refill you. In Argostoli, Manuela left and arrived Ambica.
Cefalonia dopo una splendida crociera lunga più di un mese in Grecia, anche dopo Croazia, Montenegro, Albania, finalmente Grecia, le isole Ionie, a nord, a sud, una meraviglia. Lasciamo Cefalonia dopo 3 giorni ad Argostoli, che è un gran bel posto, e ci aspettano quasi 250 miglia di mare, io e Ambica, alla via così.
Full crossing of Ionian Sea. Some gusts in the first night, but in general was a very pleasant crossing. In the last hours we arrived running at 7.5, 8 knots. After 2 nights, we arrived in Marina di Riposto, a modern marina with all kinds of facilities, particularly equipped for deluxe yachts that come here for provisioning and flight connections. We're spending the summer at Aeolian Islands, one of the best archipelagos in the Mediterranean, I have to tell you. Here we met our beloved friend Tami, and joined us another valuable member of the crew, Agostino. Unfortunately, we were in a kind of a hurry, so after a couple of days of hanging around in Tami country house, we had to continue our trip toward north. Stretto di Messina is feared since the most ancient times. I can tell you that it is not only for the strong tidal stream, that it is also a microclimate totally on its own. So, despite high pressure and very good forecast, we had to go upwind with gusts up to 35 knots for the 37 miles of the channel, a hell of a navigation. At last, we arrived in Messina at afternoon, at the end of the channel, and the weather up front was heavenly. We arrived after sunset, and we anyway found a safe spot to anchor. Not easy in a place where the depth is immediately over 30 meters, even close to the coast. Once in Aeolian Islands, I had to show to the crew some of Lipari Island and some of Stromboli. Stromboli has the impressive active volcano. Then, after some rest, we headed to Ponza, 160 miles, route 320. In Ponza, we learned from the forecast that the weather conditions were changed again, so we could just sleep one night there and then rush up to Porto di Roma, our final destination, at the entrance of Rive Tevere. This is a sample of how the weather delighted us in front of Anzio during the crossing. This is September 1st in Tyrrhenian Sea. Luckily, the season is not always like that here. Porto di Roma is a very big marina, very practical if you plan to visit Rome. There are all facilities. The place is not properly beautiful and not completely safe, as the entrance tends to silt up, and in good conditions there are 3 meters depth of the entrance. Plus, there may be an annoying or even dangerous swell inside the harbors.